Hey guys, I'm Chase with Turkeys for Tomorrow. I'm here today with Mark. We're down at his place talking turkeys, and we'll give you guys some tips on how to manage for turkeys and some things you can do with your habitat.
My favorite subject, turkey hunting and turkey calling and management of the resource in general. You know, I think if you look at social media or just talk to hunters across the country, our populations are in a declining mode. And we were really spoiled from like the 70s through the 2010 or so. Populations were booming across the country. There were birds everywhere, and that's not necessarily the case right now. And there's some areas that are in steep decline to the point that it's quite concerning. So Turkeys for Tomorrow, National Wild Turkey Federation, they're doing everything they can to figure out what is causing this decline so that they can help create a solution to the problem. Well, one of the things we've done, and I implemented probably a decade ago, I started seeing a few farms where the numbers were dropping to the point I was a little concerned. And we started keeping track of how many birds we were hearing historically, how many jakes we were observing, whether it be with a trail camera or visually, and how many turkeys we'd harvest on that farm. And the other thing I started doing was expanding how many farms we could hunt. I own some farms here in Iowa and south of here in Missouri, but I also wanted to lease some additional properties to take pressure off of certain farms, gain some permission on some other farms. And I did that by talking to a variety of landowners. Some people deer hunt, don't turkey hunt. We would offer our help on the farm. We would offer a day rate or a bird rate, or just lease the entire thing for turkey season, and say, we don't want to come in and kill all your turkeys. We want to kill a turkey on your farm. That's it, just a turkey, because I never want to over harvest. And by doing that, through time, we've increased how many farms we're actually hunting so that we reduce the pressure on all of the farms.
Right, that makes perfect sense. So running cameras is one thing you do just to figure out how many turkeys are there before the season. Have you noticed that that's a pretty good way to kind of get a feel for where turkeys are, how many turkeys you have on the property, and then that helps you develop a harvest strategy for that season?
Certainly, it's much like a summer survey for deer. If you put it on feed, but like in the winter, you get the full winter flock, so you get this big number. So it's one thing to look at your winter numbers, it's another thing to see what your numbers are during the turkey season, because that winter flock can, go in a lot of different directions, and you might have 10 gobblers on camera, then all of a sudden the season comes around, you got 2 or 3. So we really look at the population during the season and try to make decisions based on that. So historically, if the population feels like it's trending upward, we might kill a few more turkeys on that farm. In other words, say you've got 4 turkeys gobbling in there and you're seeing 6 or 7 jakes, it's not going to hurt my feelings to kill 50% of the gobbling turkeys or a couple.
Right.
However, if there's, say, a couple gobbling turkeys on 300 or 400 acres, no jakes around, chances are we're not even going to harvest one there that year. We have several farms in that shape right now. So we really look at the historical data year in and year out. Are we growing? Are we shrinking? And what's that jake population doing? And then we make harvest recommendations ahead of the season. We'll target, hey, this farm is a 1, this farm's a 2, this farm's a 0. It's based on the overall size of the farm and what we see in our data from years past. We know exactly where we're at any given year because we've kept very good track through the years.
Now for turkey season, are you guys mainly planting clover plots? Is that where you're seeing a lot of birds? And as far as nesting, what are you guys doing to improve nesting habitat or brood habitat for the hens?
We do a lot of TSI, we do a lot of burning, and we try to stay out of those areas come season. That's another thing that I think is important. If you've got areas that you're seeing a lot of hens in, we try not to go in there and disturb that nesting. The other thing we do is just try to do as much predator control as we possibly can. All of those nest predators, also coyotes, bobcats, whatever we can do to reduce that overall predation issue has really helped, I think, on some of our key farms.
And if it's legal in your state, it's a great time to do trapping during the nesting season, just to kind of curb the predators at that time when they're out searching for those nests. Some states it's not legal in, so obviously you've got to check. But
it's not, that's correct, yeah. You got to make sure it's legal. So even then, do it in the off season or during the trapping season, it really does help. But it has worked for us, this program of watching your overall numbers and laying off of some farms. But we did that because we went out and we got proactive and we found some other areas to hunt. We're now, instead of driving 5 minutes to hunt, there's mornings we drive an hour and 15 minutes just to get to our hunt spot. We'll try to kill a turkey off a farm and then hit a different farm the next day. The other thing we've done is we try to hunt as a group quite often so that everybody's involved in every kill. You don't have to be the guy on the trigger or the person on the trigger to enjoy the hunt. Right. So, there's days we have 6, 7 guys on one person pulling the trigger, but yet everybody killed the turkey and everybody enjoys it. So we've really tried to reduce the overall hunting pressure we put on the population, because we recognize it's not in great shape. It's still huntable, and we're not concerned about it because we're doing the right thing to make sure we have turkeys for tomorrow, if you will. And we feel pretty good about it. But a lot of people manage their deer. You hear them talk about numbers and overall data points, but you don't hear about that with turkeys. But I kind of just applied the same principles from a deer herd to a turkey flock.
It's almost like an age structure. You have to make sure you have jakes for the following year, just like you're making sure you've got 4.5-year-old bucks for the following year to hunt. If you don't have jakes, it's probably not a good idea to go in there and shoot all your longbeards.
Absolutely. You know, I always look at it, you know, and you talk to one turkey hunter and you're like, this guy's giving back, he's a giver. And then the next guy you talk to, you could just tell he's trying to kill every turkey that he hears gobbling. And you know, that gobble of the wild turkey is a very powerful magnet for some, and they can't get over that temptation to try and kill that bird. And I always say there's givers and there's takers, and which side of that equation are you on? And I think we need more givers than takers as we go forward if we want to make sure this resource is around for future generations.
As far as the summer goes, what are you doing for nesting habitat? Are you mowing your clover fields? Are you leaving them high for poults to kind of go through and have cover, or are you, like, what is one thing you do during the summer to help your turkeys?
You know, we make sure that our clover is at a minimum 10 inches tall, and more often than not, I'd say it's anywhere from 10 to 15. But when we do mow our clover to control the weeds or the grass, we mow it at 10 or higher. But that, and we do a lot of control burns early in the year so that growth comes on, right. And you've got good nesting and good poult habitat. That's one of the most important things. So.
Are you running cameras later into the summer to see what your poult numbers are, if you've got poults with hens, or you know, the success rate for the hens?
We do not run cameras during the summer, but we do start them generally 1st of August. So our deer survey then shows you what type of hatch you had, because oftentimes we've noticed, like in June and July, you're not seeing any turkeys, which to us, that's a great thing, because those hens are hiding with those poults. The summers I love is when we can't find a hen turkey anywhere on any of the farms, because we know she's in the brush or in the cover with those poults. But around August or September, suddenly they're starting to move and we get really good pictures. It's a sad year when you don't see those poults with those hens. We've been blessed 2 years in a row, both in Missouri and Iowa. We've had a decent hatch, not a record-breaking hatch, but enough that we're backfilling, you know, certainly what we're taking. We're actually increasing our population on some of these farms, which has been a blessing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's awesome. You don't hear that much anymore.
No.
But it's because we've had farms we've laid off of 2 and 3 years in a row, and now all of a sudden it's back to the way it used to be. So it's just a management of the resource.
Which I think a lot of people can appreciate. If you're managing the resource, you really appreciate getting to harvest the resource. It might be 2 years down the road, but just getting turkeys back on your property is something to be proud of. And I know there's a lot of guys that reach out to us on social media, whether it be email, Instagram DM, or Facebook, and they're saying, you know, we're not seeing the turkeys on our place. And that's kind of one strategy they could do is, you know, go in, do control burns, do some TSI, and then just kind of stay out of there. Let the turkeys do their thing, let the turkeys move in, plant some food, and maybe not go in and hunt them 1 year, just to kind of let the hens do their thing, the gobblers do their thing, and the next year hope you can have a good crop of birds.
Absolutely. I think it gets down to, are you a giver or a taker? You're trying to kill every gobbling bird out there. We both know those guys, right? They go state to state to state and try to kill every gobbling turkey they hear, and I just don't think that's wise in the situation that the birds are in, because tactics are better, shotguns are better, chokes are better, ammunition's better, and we got to make sure that we police ourselves and we're not out there over harvesting, because it's one of those things where I think turkeys, you could over harvest them if you get a little greedy. So got to back up a little bit and check yourself and make sure that the population's better. You leave it better than you find it.
And one thing I wanted to touch on too is checking in the birds. That's a huge thing. A lot of guys don't appreciate the numbers and the data we get from that. When you check in a bird, you normally get the weight, the beard length, the spur length, whether it's an adult or a juvenile, and days that birds are harvested, which is super important information for these states as we're trying to make decisions for laws and regulations moving forward.
Absolutely.
So I know, like, a lot of guys with these Alabama projects we've started doing, we're encouraging guys to check in their birds and do everything that they can to make sure the states know as much information about the harvest as they can. And I think there's a lot of guys that hadn't realized how important and crucial that data was for states making their future decisions on turkey hunting.
No doubt about it. You know, another thing we do that I forgot to say is we're also careful about which turkeys we harvest. In other words, if there's a band of 2-year-olds running around that aren't really with a lot of hens, but you've got 2 big breeder toms with all the hens, we'll target that group of 2s and leave those breeders alone. That's something that Dr. Chamberlain told me probably about 3 years ago. He made that point that some of their studies show if you take that breeding tom away from that flock of turkeys, sometimes those hens don't get bred, and that's a big issue. So we lay off of those birds until the latter part of the season. Once they lose their hens, make sure their job's done. So make good decisions out there in the field. If you see that bird with a pile of hens and there's not other turkeys there to take over that flock of birds, maybe don't shoot him. We've done it many times over the last 3 years since he told me that, and then we'll go back to that bird later in the year.
That's one of the things we're looking at in Alabama is birds and their fertility rates with jakes and adult gobblers. We're interested to see. We've got a survey after the harvest, asking, was that bird with other turkeys? How was that turkey? Did you find him alone? Was he with hens? And I think we're really interested to see how that goes, whether it be disease is affecting them, or most turkeys just aren't fertile.
But what's causing the lack in fertility is that the chemicals we're applying in terms of the farming things have changed over the last 15 years. So these studies are going to help us answer some of these questions. So all you can do right now is what you can control. There's certain things you can't, but there are things you can control. Trigger finger management's one of them. Habitat. All these different things can really help the resource. Predator control. We got to do all we can as a group of hunters to help lift the population back up instead of taking it down.
And everyone is aware now. It seems like social media has made everyone aware that there is an issue. Before it was just a few guys kind of saying, we're not seeing the turkeys that we've seen, and now the whole social media seems to understand, like, hey, the turkeys are, any kind of downward decline is big enough for us to start paying attention. And
certainly if they're on social media, I still know guys that aren't. So I think it's important to grab that guy and just have that coffee shop talk. Sometimes that's the most important means of communication, especially for turkey hunters. Hey, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? Draw their attention to it. And you talk to a lot of guys, oh, the numbers are down, but I got my birds. It's like, well, they are down. We gotta police ourselves a little bit. And I am glad to see some states moving that opener back a little bit and getting some pressure off the flocks, especially down in the southeast, and trying to let that flock breathe a little bit.
And a lot of hunters were really receptive to those changes, moving them back, just because they had seen the state that the turkey was in some of those southern states like Georgia, Alabama. They didn't complain just because of breeding. They were like, well, that's going to get more hens on the nest, and if it's good for turkeys, we're okay with it.
Absolutely. So we all got to do our part.
If you want to do your part, head to turkeysfortomorrow.org, read what we're doing in Alabama. We're about to make a big announcement. We're the state of Mississippi and the project we just committed to there. And
with the National Wild Turkey Federation.
With the National Wild Turkey Federation in both states. And head to our website, learn more, sign up to become a member, and check it out.
Be a member of both organizations. It's another thing that you can do is support them financially as much as you can. At least be a member of both. Understand what's going on, read the literature, and both Turkeys for Tomorrow and National Wild Turkey Federation are supporters of DeerCast. They're actually contributing with different articles and different programs they're doing. So it's been great to see them in there, reporting what's going on to help the wild turkey.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, buddy.